Yeah, so if you haven't heard Maxar's name, and maybe some people were at the panel yesterday, so any duplicate content will do fast. But Maxar builds, operates, and brings down satellite imagery from space. And this is right here, the state of the art of satellite imagery. This isn't like, is Battlefield better than Call of Duty? This is the actual best satellite imagery. There's a reason the US government has bought Maxar imagery for the last 30 years, and why if you see anything about Ukraine with satellite imagery, it's got Maxar at the bottom. We have the absolute best, top of the line. I had nothing to do with that. I joined last year. But it is fantastic. Anyone know what this is? It's not the London Eye. Yeah, I know. They made one in Dubai, so there's a second London Eye. This one I just put in for you guys because I'm a space and tech nerd. That is the Millennium Falcon at Disneyland from space. Very meta. But look, they even put like the exhaust burns on the top. I don't know, I love it. But what you can see is you can see people, right? And so I came from outside the space industry. I was in video games forever. I did a decade at Electronic Arts, making mobile games, making free-to-play games. And then I was at Amazon when Maxar called and said, have you heard of Maxar? And I felt bad. I said, no, never heard of Maxar. And they said, have you used Google Earth? Yes, I've used Google Earth. All right, that's Maxar imagery. So Maxar has quietly been this backbone of the 2D mapping industry without folks knowing. And they said, we built a 3D version of the world. Do you think there's anything we can do with it in the commercial space? I said, absolutely. And so that's why we're here today. Anyone know this one? It's just a beautiful shot. There's nothing significant. That's the airport in Beijing. But it just shows the vibrancy of what you can capture from space and what we're turning into 3D for people to play with. And that's what we're talking about now is, the world's been in 2D. We've been in Zoom meetings using our phones, these ridiculous keyboard and mouse, user input devices that our grandkids will laugh at. But we're going towards immersion, right? You've all probably done VR. There's 20 million VR headsets out there. That's not going away. And then AR, they're already talking about the contact lenses, and we haven't gotten the glasses yet. But we're going to overlay the world with information. And to do that, you need a really good 3D representation of the world. And that's what we're talking about today, and what a partnership with Blackshark takes, raw satellite imagery that looks good top down and turns it into a playable experience that you can build on in game engines like Unreal.
Now switching to games for a moment, going back in time when my previous career as a game developer, our first game was an open world. This is a game lingo term for large outdoor spaces. Traditionally, games started in indoor spaces because of constraint in computation power, and you don't need to see that far indoor because there's mostly a wall. Then games, because of the increasing CPU and GPU power of consoles, became better and switched to outdoor worlds, open worlds. And our first game back then in 2007, a snowboarding game, was 8 by 8 kilometers for each map. Map is a level. So we procedurally modeled mountains inside those 64 square kilometers, and this was state of the art back then. This was, I think, the biggest open world available. We pioneered texture streaming on the Xbox 360 for that, and now imagine suddenly we can do the entire planet. And this happened in a little bit more than a decade, and now think from a game design perspective, what this does change with having the entire planet in your fingertips and all the gameplay you can make, this unlimited, endless replayability and gameplay. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, the first thing that crossed my mind when I heard about the 3D digital twin was how fun would it be to play a global scale of Fortnite with the world playing, right? And it'd probably take a year to crown one champion. They should make a lot of money. This is a visual representation of that. No, it's not that good. The other thing I think about is just drive anywhere. So the way I picture it is you just spin this globe, right? Pick any video game that decides to build with this technology, spin the globe, draw a little square, and that's your level, right? So you want to go racing anywhere, whether it's through your hometown streets or through one of your favorite cities or on the Great Wall of China, right? You can build that in without having to hire 20 artists and to build the entire thing from scratch.
Now showing you first outcome of our collaboration. This is Tuscany in Italy, and just think of the next pandemic hitting us. We all locked down again. At least we can do some VR-powered virtual tourism, or maybe other use cases? Like
Oh yeah, this trip, it cost me like $20,000 on my honeymoon. So you can enjoy this.
And now think of the production costs for Hollywood doing location scouting. How much you can cut this down using this imagery.
I hadn't heard it live like this, but we've got that good cheesy Italian music behind it. It's what I had it to the marketing department.
I did choose that.
Well, you chose that. Apologies. Official apologies to blackshark.ai. But it is incredible. I think, everyone's gotten used to these digital twins at micro scale, right? You've seen a truck that's perfect, right? You've seen even a city block that's perfect. We talked to someone who's done Bourbon Street down to, a centimeter. But when you think about places where you can't fly a drone or you can't get a plane, it starts getting fascinating, right? Once you have the global play space, as a creator, you get to think, where do I want this to take place? Is it in a jungle? Is it in the desert? What do I want the flora and fauna to look like? I mean, you can see down to the detail, right? Each pixel is only the size of your iPhone. So you've got great range now.
Now switching gears to something obviously more serious.
Wait, actually, who knows what that is? Is it a young crowd?
It's called an encyclopedia. This was like the previous thing, which now is Wikipedia. And back at least in dance in my college time, we had those libraries full of them.
I never went to the library.
Okay. And people use that to get informed, to Google up basically information. And this was the old way. Now people like pupils switch to Wikipedia, but can you? Now imagine switching into another form of learning, not using Wikipedia, but doing in the virtual counterpart of it, going into an embodiment of this whole experience, and now jumping from rooftop to rooftop, like in Paris, La Défense, as you can see, or want to see the Eiffel Tower from different perspectives you never could do in real life. And I think this now again bridges the gap back to gaming to make education more fun.
Yeah, look at that. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? So this 3D immersive environment, I think people sometimes look at this and think it's science fiction. Certainly when I got the call from Maxar, it said we have 100 million square kilometers of the Earth, almost the whole Earth, in 3D that's interactive. You go, I don't think we're there yet. We are. And it's time. It's time to start building global video games, global simulations, so that we can solve problems. And this isn't just about entertainment, right? A global simulation can help us react to disasters, react to terrorist attacks, handle climate protection. We can track, we were just joking about it last night, we tracked every narwhal in Canada just to make sure that we protect that species. That's the one with one tooth, if you're not up to it. So quickly, back up, Maxar, we're this full cycle space company. We actually build the satellites by hand, ship them up on SpaceX rockets, and then operate them, downlink the imagery, process it, and turn it into either a global mosaic, cobbling together 400,000 images to create what you see in Google Earth or Apple Maps. And then we process thousands of images to turn it into 3D, this highly, highly accurate 3D that the government uses for whatever the government wants to use it for. But entertainment and getting it to that photoreal, beautiful look, that's what the Blackshark Maxar partnership is all about. Here's a video you don't usually see at a gaming conference. This has got rockets in it.
T-minus 15 seconds.
So we're sitting right
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
PR team. All right, come on, clap for the PR team. All right. They're here, so that, you're gonna clap later. All right, so we're launching 6 more satellites, which will get us 10, which starts getting you 15 revisits per city, right? So we can pick a city and go over and get you almost like hourly updates in 2D, and then cobble together 5, 10 images, and you're getting 3D in near real time. We're pulling in, it's close to 5 million square kilometers, and it's all metric system, so I'll put that in context. It's half the United States every day getting pulled in as imagery. So you can imagine our cloud provider, AWS, really likes us as we pull together 100 petabytes plus. I think it's 125 now of data that we can crunch. It's like a digital time machine back 20, 30 years. Who can guess this one? Oh, come on, you guys, you put Port of Kobe. You got that one already. So we downlink it, we process it. It doesn't look like this when we get it. You actually have a lot of AI and ML that goes in, pulls clouds out, recolors, retouches, and the satellite's moving 20,000 miles an hour, so you have to actually pull the imagery back together. Oh, this is good. No, what? Can anyone guess this one? Were you there? Nice. It is Oktoberfest. I showed a friend, and they said, I was in that tent. So this was just from a couple weeks ago that the team pulled this one together. It's a great shot. So every day we're pulling in something like 70 terabytes of data. It's like 4,000 4K films every day streaming down from space into our archives. And honestly, Maxar for decades was providing that to the US government, military, and our allies. When war breaks out somewhere, you need a 2D and 3D representation of that battleground so you can help your troops. We've been sending it out to the commercial world via mapping because that was where the business was. But now there's opportunities all over, from insurance to drones to anything that could benefit from decision making at a global scale simulation. It's there. And so we're really excited to start announcing what Maxar can bring to the rest of the world, really democratizing this incredible data set. So you've seen us in games. We had to kind of stretch to get to this. We're usually that background map, when you're picking where to go play or where to go fight. But now we're going to be part of the 3D infrastructure to gaming. But the absolute best game that's used Maxar imagery is Flight Simulator that Blackshark built. You probably played Microsoft Flight Sim like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I certainly have played it. The reason it feels so real and is realistic is it's based on actual reality. And so that's where our partnership really started to take off.
Exactly, the flight simulator. And since what Dan just showed those awesome images, but you don't have a Dan always explaining you what's in those images, because they are mostly like human readable. Now we need to do something to make them machine readable in order to prepare the ground for any type of simulation game or whatever use case which needs to understand what's in the image in order to then turn it into 3D to build even more cool stuff on top of it. And maybe let me tell you how blackshark came out of a game studio to enable this. It was in about 2016. I had been running a game studio back then, which I built, and we made our name in those large open worlds and solving technical complex challenges involving with multiplayer in open worlds. And it was 2016, Microsoft gave us a call, asked to help them on a particular tough challenge. And back then, Microsoft was in the planning phase of the upcoming flight simulator, and all they had was a large, rather non-uniform collection of aerial and satellite images. It's called Bing Maps, their own mapping service. And they already projected it on a gigantic 3D globe in the size of our planet, but the surface was flat. And they looked for someone who had an idea how to turn this into 3D. And us being straightforward, pragmatic game developers, we thought just identify every single rooftop. Usually beneath every rooftop there's a building, so we have the buildings. Identify every single tree on this planet, turn all of this into 3D and the job done. That's a bit oversimplified, but basically it's how we did it. And fast forwarding 2 years in time, we developed our own tech stack solution to enable this, and the result was more than 1.5 billion buildings, all in 3D, and more than 30 million square kilometers of vegetation, all in 3D. And this was when Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella called us to ask how the heck we solve this fundamental problem. And at this point in time, it was pretty clear to me that the applications and the opportunities with the technology we built for the flight simulator has an enormous way to enable other different use cases in many, many other industries. And so we took the 30 people who worked on the flight simulator out of the game studio, wrapped another entity around them, and this became Blackshark. That's our story. Now, let me tell you how we do that. This is one of those beautiful images from Maxar. You can see a lot of buildings there and streets, vegetation. In a first step, we look in the 2D image and identify like a building by its rooftop. If it's a perfect ortho image, meaning 90 degrees from top down, then the rooftop also is the footprint. If there's a slight shift, it becomes a bit more complex. It's called off-nadir angle. If you know this angle, then you can correct it. But basically now we have a building. And as a next step, let's say we identify a building rooftop which is rather large and it's dark. Dark already is a first indicator it might be a flat rooftop because gable-tipped other rooftop types are usually not dark. Then we also, and we feed this parameter into our AI system. But we also look at other parameters like population density at this building's location, orientation of the building to the next road, where on the planet it is, what type of neighborhood it is. Then we take a more detailed look on the rooftop itself, if there's rooftop furniture, as we call it, like AC units, satellite dishes, and all this we feed into this AI system, and as a result we get what we call an educated guess, or a well-educated guess, what type of building this might be. And to our own surprise, in the first iterations of this technology, the accuracy was more than 85%. Now it's way better. And then we use all this information and turn it into 3D. This is now the real information. This is the information in gray block which we measured, basically. It's like the height, the volume of the building, the rooftop furniture. The Space Needle here is a manual model here. We sometimes do them to give some local flavor to it, but all the other buildings are like auto-generated. And then we again use AI and skin. It's a gaming word for the texture of the buildings. And those is a bit harder because from a top down, you have no idea on the textures of the facades because you don't see them. Again, using AI, doing a classification of the building, again, where on the planet it is, what type of building it is, we then do what we call a geotypical, a plausible texturing. This means not just the facade colors are fitting to this part of the world, also it needs to make sense, like the entry door should be on the ground floor. Then we have windows. The windows are mostly the same size next to each other, and we use this again with AI to complete this entire picture to have a full-blown synthesized building then.
But the reason is, so you might look at this and say, well, I've seen on Google Earth or Google Maps the 3D version. They're doing like high-cost LiDAR or driving cars through or flying planes over. This is at global scale. That's what's incredible about it.
Like Google Earth has a coverage in 3D of 10 to 12% of the planet, which was surprising to me.
I love this shot. This just gets across, the amount of data we have. Somebody came up to me and said, you should run that by the GeoGuessr star. What's that guy's name? Rainbolt. See if he could do it in a quarter second each. That's Mont Saint-Michel. That's awesome. But the hardest part has been taking Maxar imagery and all this stuff that we built around the derivatives. So, where are the cars, where are the planes, what's happening over time, where's the change, and bringing it to the gaming community. And that's where we're really excited about the Blackshark partnership. And, we joined, they've got Microsoft as an investor, and we came in and brought just a ton of imagery and 3D to help build out this platform. Look at that. I don't know, looks good. I just love looking at it. You get used to looking at it from above in the gaming world, but we're very close to getting you down into first-person shooter where you can run through the buildings. And that's when we really start opening up capabilities.
So what other use cases we have with this gigantic digital twin? Dan mentioned the Fortnite Anywhere. You can play in New York City or Manhattan here. Maybe it's a city building game. Total different camera perspective. I think the sky is actually the limit what people are, like way more creative people than we are, like at this audience here, can do with that.
Yeah, it's true. They asked us yesterday, what's the recipe for a great sim or a great game? And the truth is, we're bringing an ingredient. The recipe has to be original and have innovation in it. But we want to just build a play space where you can open your mind and say, I want to play a game on Bourbon Street, or build a virtual tourism experience that really immerses you in the French Quarter.
Or hanging out at the beach with your friends, playing a surfing game.
Yeah, that's the landlocked Austrian guy wants to go to the beach.
At least a little bit of beach time.
I just think, I got lucky enough when I was in my teen years to get to go to Egypt and stand by the pyramids, and those blocks are 6 feet tall. So if you've only seen it in pictures, it doesn't really do it justice. When you're standing there, it's shocking. And so, how fun would it be to actually get one of your gaming experiences, whether it's skateboarding or something like that, where you're jumping down the pyramids of Giza. When I told somebody that, they said, "How did you climb on them?" I said, "Oh, we just we paid the guard." I mean, it was the 80s. You just paid the guard. You climbed up.
So actually, I climbed the pyramids in Assassin's Creed.
Oh, there you go.
But guess what? It took them 3,000 artists to model it.
Yeah, that was probably an expensive pyramid. But we're starting to see, this metaverse keyword, and I think it's been talked about a lot here. What is the metaverse? Some people make fun of it, but really it's this big data exchange based on the real world with overlaid information. So, the internet processes data and brings it to us. We go to one of billions of websites. You're gonna have the same thing in the metaverse, right? It'll be a billion different places to go to the metaverse. The ESPN metaverse will be not reading about sports or looking at boring flat images, but experiencing the sport. And there's a great NFL VR game where you are the quarterback, and it changes your perspective. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And a lot of them will be fictional worlds, but plenty will be real world, whether it's for training. One of Maxar's biggest projects is called One World Terrain. It's the US Army wants to build an entire globe that is so accurate that soldiers train as they fight and fight as they train. They'd had some missions where a fence was supposed to be chain link, and it ended up being a wall. And that's different if you're a helicopter or if you're people who need to run through. And so they realized they needed this accuracy at global scale, and that's where our Precision 3D product is going. But there's going to be plenty of those types of metaverse in the enterprise space. Oh, yes. Have you done one of the official flight sims? My little brother was a Navy pilot, so I got to do the F-18 flight sim where you sit in the cockpit with the full 3D, but not with VR goggles on, so you really feel it. It's absolutely beautiful. I think, a global scale flight simulator is going to be really exciting.
Something similar like flight simulation here is a synthetic airport reconstruction, as we call it, from San Jose Airport, and this is used by one of the major flight companies out there to test and validate the sensors of upcoming autonomous planes for autonomous landing and takeoff. And we give them those synthetic environments. And one of the beauties of our solution, it's not just visually pleasing and looks like the real thing. Since we understand each pixel, how it's made, if it's part of the runway, a part of a light, or part of a building, we can, with a button press using tools like Unreal, we can switch like time of day. We can illuminate the runway, we can illuminate the windows in the buildings in an irregular fashion to mimic reality. We can even make the runways simulate wetness. All those effects become possible because we have this contextual understanding of the surface of the planets, which enables all those use cases and then used for like simulation and training in a sensor it's called visual sensor simulation.
And once you have that metadata, you can overlay it with a fantasy world of your choice, because you're just retexturing the world. I don't know if you've played that kayaking game called Phantom Covert Ops, but if you're in VR and you're using your arms, you don't feel sick. So I'm picturing this, kayak anywhere in the world. I love that idea. Or driving.
Different use case again, visual sensor simulation, a rather large North American retailer working on the future of grocery delivery using drones. We give them thousands and thousands of single-family backyards for them to train actually to land there. And again, we can modify all types of parameters here, like the reflection coefficients of the rooftops, of the solar panels, which can be seen here. But funny side note, guess what the real problem was when they deployed a drone for the first time and tried to land in a backyard? It was the dog of the
Power lines, dog, of
the
course.
dog jumping after the drone, and
Yeah.
even all this simulation didn't help them to identify this edge case, but then they asked us if we can simulate a dog.
No, you just drop bones right before you land. That would be how I would fix
Good
that.
point. But use cases are not limited to game sensor simulation, like think of real estate, planning, construction, architecture. We got an interesting question from a client. They doing like pool design on a nationwide level in the US, so it's quite a high volume of pools, and many of the clients are asking them, am I visible in my own new pool? Can the neighbors see me? And again, using a synthetic reconstruction of all the neighboring buildings, and then place in the pool you design with their own software, you can solve this problem rather cheap and quick.
Yeah, one of the use cases I hear a lot about, because I'm out in Los Angeles and Hollywood, is location scouting is actually quite pricey. You know, going and finding these perfect locations. My wife's a writer, and you know, moving a production set costs a lot of money. And so, you know, the data we have, the metadata we have, you could build a search tool that says, hey, I need a parking lot surrounded by a bowling alley and a coffee shop. And it needs to be near a park where we can set up craft services. These are the kinds of applications that you could do in a quick sprint. I told the group yesterday we had 3 engineers on just a hackathon in a couple days create building destruction over Ukraine in real time. So they pulled in our 3D API, our 2D API, and our change detection API, and then a data set, a public data set of what the buildings were. And so you zoom out at Ukraine level, and you see red dots. You can zoom all the way in, and it's a 3D representation. Right-click it, it's a school. And this is how the news media can get access to the right photos. And these are these simple use cases that we want to be an ingredient in, and we're looking for app developers to start making it.
So like let's call it the art of the possible is inspiring. The more you think about those gigantic data sets, the more ideas are coming up. And so what we did now for this event, we brought, like, you might recognize this place, it's New Orleans, and we brought that to Unreal Engine 5 with this great tool. It was rather easy. And now a developer can use this as a canvas and use our semantic data to augment it with Quixel's Megascan library to add, like, to push the art of the possible into what's real. Like with nanite streaming, there's no limit, there's a limitless polygon count. This was always in game development the biggest issue, the poly count and texture memory usage, whatever. Now these times are over, and you can really become really wild in creativeness and augment and make whatever you think of out of this. Maybe zombie down or...
Yeah, no, it hatched from a meeting with Unreal and blackshark and Maxar sitting together just a few months ago. What would be an awesome thing to show at Unreal Fest? And here it is.
World premiere of New Orleans in 3D.
Known drone shots were used in the making of that video. Yeah, it's exciting. So, and this is just the taster. And so if you scan the QR code, you can download an executable as you go fly around New Orleans. I think we limited it to about 1,000. So I think everyone in here is good, but once it gets out. So make sure you grab it, go play around with it. I said yesterday that the most important thing for us is having developers give us feedback. Is the quality good enough? Do we need more photos to create the 3D? Do we need to start from a different 3D model? Please get back to us. This is just the first city of tens of thousands that we can deliver to the gaming community with blackshark.
Yeah, so we all hope you're testing it out and let us know what awesome stuff and great ideas you develop while working with it, but be aware it's just a viewer application. You cannot build on that yet. There will be a generalized availability of the plugin for the Unreal Engine, but I'm not allowed yet when it's going to be released. Will be soonish. But I think it's a first teaser to give you an idea what the art of possible is right now.
And so that's for photoreal 3D, but if you're interested in just precision 3D or the 3D that we sell into One World Terrain and the military, we've got that already. We're up to, I think we're close to 70 million square kilometers that we can provide. It needs texturing, of course, but if you're looking for something like that, you can reach out to Maxar.